Let's, yeah. Um, hey, fellow anti-netters and everyone, just as what happens every single time is, Lane and I start talking a little bit before the call, and at least in my opinion, I'm like, this stuff is super valuable, and the shit is like the best stuff is usually the stuff that you and I talk about off camera. So I'm like, fuck it, we're gonna roll right now and just start talking about this stuff. But yeah, I guess you're saying, one of the things that I'm narrowing down right now is, I think I've told Lane and I love the idea of creating a physical monthly newsletter, and I'm inspired by, and that idea I've been inspired by has been from Gary Halbert, who is a famous at least in his own mind and in the mind of his followers like myself. He's a famous copywriter, and he's since passed away, but I have a full printed out, and it cost me a lot of money. It was like $2,500 for his entire archive, and I've got like 2 big volumes of all of his monthly letters. And it just pulls you away from all of the other crap, all of the other, like, I don't know, stuff out there online. And like I literally start my mornings with reading one of his physical monthly newsletters, because he writes in the way that he's like packing really valuable knowledge and about, specifically around, making money online via marketing and via copywriting. But it's almost like he puts his heart into it and speaking so directly to you that it's like an experience that is replicable from a lot of the other stuff that we see out there. Like, it's not a Facebook group. It's not like, like a course, an online course. It's a really cool thing. And so, yeah, it's like, I'm starting with, doing these discovery calls this week with the anti-net, my people. And I'm like, I would love it to just create this physical newsletter, but I also want to start with, I want to try to find like a common thread and really start with my customers in mind and my people in mind, and be like, okay, is it help actually producing writing that people want? Is it help actually developing thought? Is it help getting into a flow or a system, or even bond? But yeah, I mean, then maybe I think I can do a physical newsletter. We'll see, or not. Maybe I know the course model works really, really well and helps people. So yeah, anyway, I've completely hijacked and taken over your point, but
No.
Go on with what you were saying.
I mean, we had that we were having that conversation briefly, 5 minutes before we hit the record. So you give a backstory to what we're wanting to talk about, because I wanted to talk about this, that, I think a physical newsletter would work, depending on, obviously the audience, but I think the audience, your audience is, and the audience I'm trying to build for myself is, an audience that I think is desirous of having that experience, that, you have something in front of you. And I don't, how long were his newsletters? I mean, they were called newsletters, but weren't they like little kind of zine almost?
Yeah.
How many pages?
They're about maybe 10 to 15 pages, front and back. So, I would say, 10 to 15 pages, it's like side 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, probably
Front
10
and back.
15.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's like a small independent monthly magazine, really, is what that is. I mean, we called them zines, poetry zines back in my day in the 80s and 90s, before the internet. And I think people, at least I am willing to go back to that. I would like that, because you do point out something. I mean, waking up in the morning and, almost reading a newspaper without all the MSM BS that's going on in today's world, and lies and deception, but to read something that is a person who's writing something almost specifically to you about, whether it be, in your case, you know, the knowledge development realm, or whatever you're trying to segue to, which is, I think, what you're kind of trying to segue to, right? From, not from the anti-net, but inclusive of the anti-net. Like, I mean, that's the physical manifestation, the practice of knowledge development. But, you know, there is a whole, you know, another side to that that I have, you know, you haven't really explored on the channel.
Yeah,
A
for
little
sure.
bit in other ways, but not really. That
More about like the actual process of, you're saying, of from, you know, how to develop knowledge from the point of how to select books, how to select source materials, to
yeah,
how to extract, how to read them, how to
yeah,
extract knowledge from them, putting them on bib cards, and then developing them, and then,
integrating.
yeah,
Yeah.
installing, and then also taking that, your main cards, to an actual, I think this is, I spoke with someone today, it's like they struggle with the taking it from a main card to actual blog post. The
Mhm.
writing part is what people struggle with. um but yeah, even beyond that, yeah, that's like the end to end process, but that just gets you to the, from the zero, you know, from like zero knowledge to you know, zero product to the actual written output. But then you're left with, okay, great, but how do I actually, you know, make a living off of this? How do I market it? How do I grow this? And that's a whole nother like step in the process and challenge that I actually think I can help solve as well.
Mhm.
um
It's
so
also beyond that. It's really an existential, because those questions behind them really are like, is this meaningful? Am I
yes,
meaningful? You
yes,
know, it's a lot of things that are, you know, psychological or philosophical,
yes,
or behind
exactly.
that could be explored. And that's where I believe a physical newsletter will happen. And I mean, since you've talked about that, I've been thinking a lot about it. You know, we talked about that months ago. You know,
Hmm.
you had brought that up, and I was like, I think it's a great idea. I would subscribe to it. But because I am so sick of digital in a way, you know, and on my blog, you know, that the one that I just wrote about going to the imperceptible country, that is a part of it. I'm just done. I want both. I want a digital community, and I want a in real life community.
Yeah,
That's the reason why I like your ideas of having, you know, events in person. We need
hmm,
that.
yeah, for
And
sure.
or we all end up in the crazy endless avatars of the metaverse, which is hellscape to me.
Dude, the metaverse, okay, let's just put for the record, the
Yeah.
metaverse is the dumbest thing in the world. We
Yeah.
already have had the metaverse, a better version of the metaverse, for
Yeah.
the past, I don't know, 20 years. The metaverse is really essentially a metaphysical world,
Yeah.
or otherwise known as, you know, the metaphysical. Meta, the word is, you know, a Greek word. I think it means above or beyond.
Beyond.
And all
Yeah.
it means is above and beyond the physical world, which means it's the virtual world. Hello, we've had the virtual world forever. We've seen what the virtual world does. You know, it's
Yeah.
like people, you know, create, you know, you know, they're like 300-pound male perverts create avatars in World of Warcraft of, you know, hot
Yeah.
princesses, and that's what the metaverse is. And
Yeah.
we expect it all of a sudden to be like groundbreaking or breathtaking. And I know this stuff. Like I bought crypto kitties back, and I cornered the green, because green is my favorite color, the green crypto kitties market. This is back in 2018. Like, I've seen it in this process. I've, you know, started a cryptocurrency company, and I've been deep in this stuff and this metaverse stuff. And I don't know. I think it's overhyped. And
Yeah.
I think, you know, it's funny is like,
They think the
I think the
trolls are bad now.
I think the exact opposite is the future. I think the
Yeah.
physical verse is way, way undervalued compared to the metaverse. I think
Yeah.
we need, like, you know, I'm, you know, as the analog revolutionist needs to hype. I think we need to go back and do a lot more critical thinking offline, and that starts
I
with,
think
yeah.
I think what appeals to people about the metaverse and Web3 and all that, and it appeals to me in a sort of way, is the inability to claim physical, almost impossible physical locative land at this point. You know, it is really difficult, and it's getting more difficult with, like, you know, Wall Street speculators getting there, buying property, holding it. And so I think there's this like desperate anxiety inside of people that where we're realizing that we don't want to live in you know, cyberpunk 2077, you know,
Mm-hmm.
piled on top of each other. And so everyone sells this kind of metaverse Web3 as like your space that you have, but you know, and in a lot of ways anonymity, but I don't see that happening, because you have to have some identity, or you're going to have even worse, like you said, 300-pound guys just trolling the shit out of people constantly. You know, and it's just a hellscape ideal to me. But
Yeah.
I do like the idea of Verbit. I don't know if I stand behind, you know, I don't want to put the creator in with it, but I really desire, you know, kind of that physical, you know, relationship, that in real life relationship. And I think that's what I think we're moving back towards that. You know, everything comes back around, bell bottoms, everything. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's coming back. It's just I don't know how, you know, I don't know how people are going to accomplish that with, you know, in real life, you know, the way things are going in real life. So I think that's what it all comes down to, is this anxiety. I think people desire connection, real life connections,
Mm-hmm.
more than digital. And to get back to the, you know, kind of a tangent, but to get back to the ideal of putting out a physical newsletter, you know, first of all, I wouldn't call it a newsletter, because I mean, now we think of newsletters like, you know, a couple of paragraphs digitally in your
Yep.
email box. It's like, that was a waste of time.
Sign up to my
You know,
newsletter, and it's
yeah. So it
basically
should be
like
more
a
like a
tweet.
zine.
Yeah.
It should be the philosophical questions along with some practical. To me, the digital should hold the practicality of your vision, which is like the courses and things like that, because that's where you know, I need time. I don't have time in daily real life, so but I want to learn this. Whereas the zine, newsletter, zine, whatever you want to call it, is literally a meditative reflection, inflection point for me, to not have a digital screen in front of me, not to be interrupted, because I can be in my email box, but there's going to be something else that pops up somewhere
Yeah.
along, you know what I'm saying? So it's like a distraction-free meditative experience.
Yeah.
Whether your audience is into that, I don't know. I am, and
Mm-hmm.
I will eventually be doing something similar for more on the creativity, and then maybe even including it, and maybe even kind of hybriding it into a poetry, you know, creative journal, but with like an aesthetics, but also with the, you know, I hate the word theoretical, but you know, the framework of poetics and create, and what it means to be creative in the digital age. That's kind of what I'm going towards, my idea down the road. But I think what you're doing, what you want to do, I think people will get behind it. I
Yeah.
was looking at some today.
Yeah.
Someone's charging $20 for a monthly. It's probably about the same 15-page, you know, book review thing. And, you know, if they can do it, you can do it. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. Are you talking about that guy on that
Noah,
that
Noah K or whatever.
that podcast,
Yeah.
the Justin Murphy podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like that's kind of where my heart is. I would call it maybe a letter, you know, like, and I've called that on my website like that. In
Just call
his,
it
or
Love Letters to Lane. Subscribe to my subscribe to Love Letters to Lane. Just
or
write to me, right? You're
love
supposed to always write to your audience of one.
yeah.
Here I
Your
am,
monthly
baby.
love letter from Scott.
My wife would come in and like start beating. What are they talking?
You'd be she'd walk
Boy
in on
love.
you. you fucking on you're
Yeah.
get away from me, you know.
Like people on their phones when they're having affairs, they're like, oh
Yeah.
no. Be like, no, baby. Oh, Scott.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thanks. I appreciate hearing the good positive feedback, like on the physical newsletter. I think what I would really need to yeah, I think, and Gary Halbert says this, or actually Ben Settle, another copywriter, has said this, is um you know it's hard to sell philosophy. So if you're just being a vague philosopher, like, oh,
Justin Murphy.
yeah, exactly, it's hard to sell that shit, because after a while
He
people are like, hey,
does.
I want you to solve an actual problem, because when
Yeah.
people it's hard for that type of value proposition to also catch on. So
Yeah.
when you're trying to describe a guy like Justin Murphy, you're like, well, he's an anarchist, very smart
Academic,
intellectual,
post-academic. Yeah.
post-academic, um
From
you know
Brooklyn. That says a lot. Let's be
yeah,
honest.
well, now in Austin,
Austin, which
so it's
says a
like,
lot.
yeah, that's so, but with the Gary Halbert letter, and other physical newsletters, which, yeah, I call them zines maybe, or like letters, and a
Mhm.
physical monthly letters, it's a very clear value proposition.
Yeah.
There's three markets essentially. There's health, wealth, and relationships.
Yeah.
I think there's more, because obviously,
But
what
those are the
market.
evergreen.
Yes, those are the
Yeah.
evergreen, right? And so Gary Halbert was very clearly in the wealth market. How do you make more money? Through learning how to market your business, specifically through direct marketing, specifically, and then even a niche under that is the copywriting. So there's the
Mhm.
three markets, and then there's the sub market, which is the sub market is marketing, and then with under that there's what are called niches, right? In the world of where I am, and is I'm kind of like, with the anti-net, right? That's kind of, in a weird market. I guess you could kind of put it under the wealth market, but the intangible benefit, I think, for a lot of people is it's their mental health is completely skyrocketed and grown. Like, they have the the meaning and the desire, and they're seeing themselves actually grow, right? And get that spark in them and develop their mind. So it's kind of like, it could be kind of considered health, but I think a lot of people are doing it also for wealth, to actually learn and grow their mind so that they can be better in their profession, their craft, their career, or even just creatively. And
Yeah.
what I'm trying to nail down right now is, I think of the anti-net, this as the vehicle. This is the plane. This is how to get to your destination. Now, the destination is either it could be learning, it could be reading, it could be writing. I think writing is a very uh, a key one, because the writing is the actual output. Like, the Lumen used, the anti-net, his Zettelkasten was a means to the end, and it was there to help him publish papers and write and create output. So what I'm trying to figure out is I'm talking to all of our anti-netters and our people, and I'm like, and and what I'm trying to nail down is, okay, I have a lot of different segments of people that use the Zettelkasten, the anti-net, to develop knowledge. Some people want to use it for growth, just to learn, and then a lot of people, they want to use it to contribute, and contribute in the way of usually writing. I think writing is the clearest one. However, there are people that also can use it for other creative output, like creating YouTube videos or podcasts or things like that. But yeah, what I'm interested in figuring out is really just nailing it and focusing on the clear common thread between all of my people, and what their goals are, what their challenges are, and just making sure that I can craft something. Not just it's beyond the anti-net, it's the entire process and system and framework to get people where they want to be. And yeah, and man, I would love to figure that out to the point where, I create a physical monthly letter that really just packs one huge idea that will help them develop knowledge, that will help them write, that will help them, with creative output, that'll help them even potentially. I think the bigger thing is how to market your book and market your business and create a lifestyle or a you know a living off of it. That's an area as well. So
Yeah.
anyway,
I mean,
yeah.
I've been in the marketing space. I mean, I'm not in it really as much anymore for the last probably good 5 years, but really I started checking out about 10 years ago. But I was one of the kind of in the beginning. Someone had put it on Twitter about like, people complain about Web3 being scammy and everything, but they forget about Web2 used to be scammy. And I wrote back, yeah, I facts. I remember those days. I remember the early days of Web2, what we have now. Just you could lose your credit card a second on there because they were just scammers. It was the Wild West in the early 90s and late 80s, early 90s. And I remember getting into the internet marketing space, and it was later. It was like towards the late 90s, early 2000s when I entered that space. Learning how to make money online. And the big thing then was, back then, as it was transitioning, you would literally order a physical book through a very crappy, early JavaScript unicorns flashing and everything website to teach you how to make money online, right? And so my point is that I've been in the space a long time, and I think people are kind of done with the. Well, let me say this: out of all the people that I've taught in my early days of marketing, because I worked in advertising as a copywriter. I know marketing, both professionally and insight wise from just being a creative. I was a very successful copywriter, mostly radio and TV. And I also did direct mail before internet came around. So I've been across the scope. And my point is the one thing that I noticed in people that took my courses when I used to teach how to do email marketing or how to set up course or this or that in the mid 2000s, the ones that failed didn't have the mindset right in the first place. You could teach them step by step how to do something and they would still fail, of course, complain, but fail. The ones that got it and took off they just needed those pieces, that mechanical piece, so to speak, to put in place to understand the technical, connect this with this to this, they made lots of money, just like I did from doing the same thing. So I think what people are starting to realize in the general space is that yes, everybody wants to make money. Everybody wants the independent lifestyle, but it all starts philosophically. It all starts metaphysically. It all starts spiritually. If you don't have it right, you're not going to be successful. And even if you do, you end up like a James Altucher who's lost how many millions of dollars
over and over again.
I think he's like on his fifth time. But I mean, it shows how he can be very methodical about it, but you either won't be able to make it or you can't keep it. So get it right in the beginning. So, I agree with you. It's hard to sell a philosophy, but you're not selling a philosophy. You're helping people to attain their desire. And I know in marketing, you don't want to necessarily tell them what they really need. You want to give them what they think they need, but that's not the kind of marketing we should be doing anymore. We should be telling people, and that's the reason why I'm on your side, because you're not like that. If you were anywhere near, like a scammy or weird marketing, like you see across the social media constantly, it sickens me. I wouldn't be having this conversation with you, but because I've had conversations where you deeply desire to see people's success, and you do have a model, But you do need you have to give them the medicine that they don't think they need. And that's the sucky thing about being someone who's ethical, but also wants to build a business, because in business, you shouldn't do that. You should basically be like, oh no, yeah, you need this. Yeah, you're fine. Yeah, just sign up for this course. So you're going to be fine. Do the steps. This is internet marketing 101, people. Do the steps and you're going to be a millionaire. Look at me in front of my plane, blah, blah, blah. Right. It's that type of stuff. But no one wants prescriptive medicine, but it has to start happening. People are sick mentally, digitally sick.
Well, yeah, I think the stuff that doesn't help as much are the lower priced courses, that are like, I don't know, $49 or stuff like that, because people just buy it and they don't actually implement the steps. And they're also not challenged. I think also is like, it's one of the things I'm brainstorming or thinking of eventually is to doing like a knowledge development boot camp, or even having, if I create a course, is have that be insanely challenging. Like, no, you're going to have to commit to, it's going to be priced so that you actually commit to it. Like, and also you're going to need to commit to 2 hours a day. Now, it's one of the things that I really need to figure out how to actually hold people accountable or do that. Like, because one of the things that I was thinking of is like having a, maybe even just a 1 or 2 day, boot camp where I fly people out. We go through the cycle of knowledge development, get people on track to actually create their book, or in a month not a book, but like, like a big essay, big component of it in about 3 months.
A 4-volume book set like Scott, 2 months.
Exactly. But
chain up to the radiator with a pen in one hand and a note card in the other.
You're gonna be writing. You're gonna be writing for 3 months straight every day. You are not gonna see any. In that case, you
start a monastery up on Mount Shasta. And you bring everybody there.
Exactly.
I'll flagellate them. As they write.
Yeah. I think it would be valuable to like have a person come and do like a boot camp, an in-person boot camp, either one-on-one or group, and show them my anti-net, have them touch, feel, like see like what it's actually like, how to actually, people get it from my videos. They know how to build it. They know how to, but it's I think giving people the reassurance that they're on the right track is a good way to add value
with marketing. And we've talked about this, and it's something I struggle with. I have been homeless and I have been wealthy and everything in between. And the thing I finally come to the conclusion to is if you want something bad enough, you will either be self-reliant and figure it out on your own, or you will be willing to pay the money to get the help that you need. And so the ideas that you have should be stepping stages with an eventual in-person mastermind type thing. And that should cost money for everyone, because that's time from expertise. But the leading up to that, there should be people call me an elitist and, on creativity. And I guess I am. I believe you have to put your, a brilliant physicist is going to be pissed if you compare them to a, person who's, pours, baking soda in a Coke bottle and says, this is physics. It's the same thing with me with creativity. And it's the same thing with anything. When you want to master it, it takes a lot of time, and time equals money. And, there's no amount of money that can shortchange mastering something. But what can help you master something more quickly is having an expert lead you along at a pace to keep you from making certain mistakes, right? So to me, I think, when you sent out that email a while back, and you were asking us, your audience, about, where the kind of letting us know what you were thinking in pricing models. It's like, this
Mhm.
guy's charging way too cheap. Apparently, other people thought
Eh,
it was too
oh,
high.
everyone said it's
Well,
way too high.
this is my point. If you can't afford to put the money into yourself to develop, and I get it. Some people just don't have the money. You know what? I've been there. Guess what? I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do. These are the cold, hard facts of anything in life. And, we need to start accepting that. And the reason why this is a dissonance going on with people with money and development, the self-development realm and all that, is because everyone's telling everyone, hey, you can change your life. You can have a independent lifestyle. You can be wealthy for $49.99, right? That is ridiculous. I mean, cognitively, this, but yet you fall into the trap, especially the better the copywriter they are. That's the power of copyright. So I think you charge too cheap. Me personally, if I had what you had, and I was going to do it, my community would be $100 a month, period, for you to be in it. Why? Because I don't need, nor do I want the people who are genuinely invested in themselves need a bunch of noise that comes from people who can't afford it. And that sounds very mean spirited, but it's the truth. I know I'm probably pissing off a lot of your audience members, but the truth of the matter is if you can't find the money to invest in what's the most important thing in your life, then there's no amount of anything that's going to help you except your own toil over to moving towards mastery. And we used to live in a time pre-internet before you had to do that. You wanted to master something, you had to physically go and master it, i.e. go to a library, go seek out someone, look in the phone book, through hundreds of whatever. The point is we become very weak as humans in the way we want to be told everything. And I think that gives, and also the privilege, I'm privileged kind of attitude. Oh, I deserve to be this, right? No, you only deserve it if you work hard for it. And are willing to pay someone to help you get there. And if not, then you don't deserve it. Now that's my tangent.
No, I agree. There's steps to this ladder, and what I love doing and I'll continue to do is to create it's a little, they're unstructured but free content that helps out people on YouTube, on even my email list, and even Reddit. I've put out a ton of free content and I love doing that. Reddit, all of that stuff. However, for the stuff in which I structure and I am invested in the person, I want to in their success in terms of the creative output, and is there are certain people that could use and are it's a high priority in their life to really buckle down and take it seriously, and create the book that they've always wanted to write that needs to be created. And most of my audience and people, they have a hunch for a book, and the only issue is that it just will never get written because they don't have a clear action plan. They don't have what most importantly, they don't have a clear process, and they don't know how to actually turn it into prolific output driven work. And
they don't have a mentor too, and that's crucial. Everybody thinks they deserve a mentor. But a mentor, you can spend the 10 years figuring it out, making the mistakes yourself. I'll use the analogy of poetry here. Like I had to do, I had to be a shitty poet for a long time. Maybe I still am, but the point is the short time I spent with a poet laureate, learning, a poet laureate of New Hampshire, learning poetry, and paying them for their time, took my poetry literally from what for 10 years to insane levels, like publications,
Mhm.
starting to get my voice out there until I just was done with it. But the point is that's super important, but I had to pay for that.
Yeah.
I had to pay
Yeah.
him because I
Um,
chose to pay him because I value people's time. Anyone that
mhm.
doesn't see the value in what Scott Scheper is giving, which would be blow my mind, because I mean, just since I
Oh yeah. No.
entered this space,
I,
my
everyone has been super grateful, and
yeah,
it's been awesome. And like I'm getting, people.
grateful doesn't pay shit. I want to see the money.
Yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, it's yeah, that's why I mean, honestly, like the book that got written, that I wrote, I didn't start making progress till I hired a writing coach. I
Yeah.
hired a writing coach, and then he was like, the first thing was like, um, well, do you have an outline for your book? And I'm like, no. And I'm like, I've been reading and
Mhm.
reading and researching and writing, by hand, the sections, they emerged, but I had to
Yeah.
actually create the outline and table of contents. And then,
Yeah, because
and
that writing coach gave you uh 600,000 word nonfiction book or whatever, he was 49.99, right? That's all it cost you, right?
yeah,
That
exactly. Yeah. A
really
minute.
helpful.
Yeah. A minute.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
A millisecond,
Yeah.
nanosecond, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
The,
mean, it's you have
and
free content. That's I don't like the people who do charge large sums of money, and you go around, you don't see them put out any kind of content. Everything that's on your YouTube and Reddit, if I wanted to, I have. I haven't hired you to help me. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? When I paid to meet you, or to sign up for your Antonet, 2 months ago, I don't even think we even talked about the Antonet. I wanted to know you because I saw the higher level stuff that was going to be helpful. I learned the anti-net on your YouTube channel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, would it
Absolutely.
been nice at the time if you had a course available? I would have paid for it
Hmm.
to see a linear step by step and not have to go, okay, let me go back over to this YouTube
Yeah.
from 3 weeks. Oh, he's changed, because
Hmm.
you're developing it, right? That
Hmm.
would have been nice. Yeah, but you
Yeah.
can learn everything about the system from your free resources.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're talking about the people who want to go to the next level.
Yeah, the anti-net is just it's just the tool, essentially. It's a
Yeah.
complex tool. You have to learn how to use it, right?
Hmm.
But it's just the tool, the process, the framework, the mindset, the also I think like people need this, where I think coaching could be a huge value to people is, and then people need accountability. They need a community to see, if we're all working on the same exact challenge, which would be, let's say, a book in three, like not a massive book, but let's just say, a you
Just a
know,
2 volume.
yeah, 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 exactly, a book in 3 months,
Yeah.
and
Totally
or
achievable.
yeah, totally achievable. I mean, it could be a I think a better way would be maybe like an essay or something like that, or but I don't like essay because you can write like a 500 word essay or like a 5,000 word essay or a 20,000 word essay. I don't know. But yeah, that the end
A
output, it would
deep,
be cool to
thoughtful,
have people.
serious work.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be good to have, if people want to actually go to the next level. I think there's definitely some value and help that, that's just not offered out there, not available, because when you write using Antinet, you are writing way, way more developed content because you're engaging with a book, you're
Mhm.
writing, the ideas that conversation gave you. It's a conversation between you and the author. You're putting it out on a bib card, and then you're further processing it to make it your own. And then, on the main card, right? And then for the main card, you're riffing on the idea, adding more perspective in the manuscript form. And so, there's a lot of those writing courses out there. And I think the extent of them is just like, have the discipline to sit your ass at your computer and write every day. It's like, no,
Everybody knows that. I
yeah,
didn't write.
it's,
I just started writing again. I just launched my blog, and I'm telling, I I've been writing creatively since I was 12 years old. and and became a successful copywriter. I written my entire life,
Mhm.
and somewhere in my 30s, I burned out. I don't know. I still don't know what kept me. I've talked about this to you. I'm appreciative of you. I've started writing again because of you, because of
Mhm.
the anti-net system,
Mhm.
and because of you, your philosophy, and I guess I'm lucky. I would consider a friendship with you now because
Yeah,
of
definitely.
our interlinking, right? So
Yeah.
I get to talk to you about things that maybe the audience doesn't, and because they don't care, we talk about all sorts of things, my
Mhm.
things, your things, business things, family things, all that. But um, but the anti-net gave me back that. But what gave me it gave me the confidence to enter that space again. It hasn't helped in other areas where, like, now a little bit of chaos is starting to take over from knowledge, which
Mhm.
I know you have theories and practices on. But the thing about it is it works, and I would pay anything for that. And I would pay I would rather pay $100 a month to be in a community with other people that are like me, trying to accomplish serious changing work, than I would to be in a community that's like, it's free and maybe $20, because
Mhm.
I'm in one of those communities of serious intellectuals,
Mhm.
Justin Murphy's Other Life thing. And if you join his imperceptible, thing, you get that. Guess what, people? The free part of it, not his indie cohort, indie thinkers, where they do deep thinking and stuff. The free part of the community has 5,000 people. Half the threads are dead. Someone posts, no one really responds and everything. But if you go over into the indie thinkers side, where these people are putting out massive amounts of, in my opinion, kind of pseudo intellectual work, so it's not deep work. I
Mhm.
feel like it's a lot of like, hey, look at the vocabulary I've learned. I
Mhm.
know I'm not this stupid, I can't understand some of the stuff, but they're putting out massive amounts of, I would say, kind of B level, where the stuff coming out of me, I think, is A level.
Mhm.
And from you, probably, I have, the thing is, I want you to start this because I want to be in a space with with the other community members,
Mhm.
because I don't know who else is the community members.
Yeah.
Father, please let me meet my my siblings.
My other
But
tribesmen.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, my point is I want you to start something like this, but I don't want it to be free,
Yeah, yeah,
because it will
absolutely.
be
Oh, no.
inundated with people that take, don't give. I've
Mhm.
seen it time and time again. I think people who are serious will pay, and it'll grow. And I
Mhm.
want a community like that to
Yeah.
talk about our ideas.
But yeah, and our Reddit community is good. Like it's probably the best that it can be. We've got, it's
Mhm,
really cool people, but it's kind of just like the gateway drug.
mhm.
I think the next step is to have a private community where people are holding one another accountable. Um, I think it would be most beneficial if it's part of an actual course where everyone is working on like a challenge, like a 3-month challenge or something. Towards something, but yet after the challenge, and after all the friendships are made and stuff, all the people and the alumni that have made it through,
Yeah,
remain in the group,
I like that idea. Yeah.
and
They go into a cohort alumni group,
yeah,
into a larger alumni that can
yeah,
intermingle, but you always have your like little cohort
yes,
friendships that you develop. I mean, because you
yes,
do develop that. I think that's a great idea. A 3-month, you know,
pledge period, honestly.
yeah, yeah, like a 12-week program to publish a book,
Yeah,
a short, non whatever kind of book, but a shorter, that is totally achievable. I've
yeah,
done it,
yeah,
with a group of accountability, where you're weekly maybe showing up for like a Zoom
Oh yeah.
hang out where you don't necessarily
Mhm.
talk, but y'all work together or something like that, you know, so kind of give us physicality of a space of being like around a table with
Yeah.
others. And you're not, you know, necessarily talking maybe for the first, you know, 30, 40 minutes or 30 minutes and then 30 minutes in, but during an hour or two, it's deep work. And then there's also some, you know, learning from you about how to do certain things. And then maybe there's also, you know, hangout where people talk about share their work. You know, I went through the creative writing program. So, you know,
Yeah.
round tables where you have to read a portion of your work or, you know, things
Yeah.
like that. And people give you real time feedback. I think
Mhm.
that I would totally pay for that.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. It's like if the goal is to create something like a big output like of a book in 3 months, I would spend the first 2 months just creating main cards and reading. You know,
Yeah.
the writing comes easy. Like that could
Oh,
be
that's
done in the
true.
last that could be done in like 2 weeks. You know,
Yeah, I got these like
and
stacks of I got this stack of cards right here. You
nice.
know, that's a good amount. And
Yeah.
I keep pulling it out to write an article or an essay on my theory, my creative framework of creativity and chaos in the
Yeah.
artist in an individual, and and I get started, and you know what, I'm like 3 essays or 3 personal essays, articles, whatever you want to call, blog posts out of this, but not even about this. Like I get started writing that, I'm like, oh, and I'm in the middle of writing, and that could be on an index card or me actually writing. Oh, I'm going to actually write, but the card actually triggers a whole new
Exactly.
like essay in itself. I mean, if I kept
Hmm.
it this rate, these cards, now I don't want to do it because these cards alone at this rate could write a book.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So,
And
you
people don't
know,
realize that because they're essentially cues that launch you into a whole
Mhm.
deeper, I don't know, sequence and flow that you could just start writing, you know. Yeah, exactly.
So my point is like me as, you know, an audience person, you know, a fan of yours would be, you know, that's something that I'm struggling with, that I'm beyond the how to set up as a, you know, an anti-net. You know, I have still some, you know, I'm starting to see a little bit of chaos enter because I don't think I set up my numbering system right,
Hmm.
but it's my system, you know what I'm saying? My implementation of the divine, you know, the divineness of Scott, you know, um, but where I think people are desire is to have that one-on-one with you, but also one-on-one in even a kind of a group setting,
Exactly.
for those things like, hey, I'm sitting down, I'm trying to write this book about creativity and chaos, and now I'm writing about my time when I was a lumberjack in the Northwest and how I was learning programming, and but I was struggling with that in poetry. Great article. I want to write it. I'm having fun writing it. It'll be out tomorrow, but it's not getting me closer to, you know, basically what another, you know, another anti-netter had asked weeks ago about, hey, what's that thing behind Lane? I'm trying
Hmm.
to get to that, but I can't. I'm still trying to develop. That's where it would be important to be in a, you know, yeah, like a 12-week or something program where, you know, yeah, the first month or two is about, you know, getting things down, but also um there is a little bit of a controlled chaos going on here, right? I mean, when
Oh
you
yeah.
get to
Yeah.
this level of cards and
I don't think you've you may think that you've set your numbering off all right,
yeah,
like different or something like that, but I assure you my you know, there's pieces of mine that are just a shit show that like, you know, I've got like a section on excerpting and quoting like, you know, I'll just show everyone. Like I'll have a section on like excerpting and quoting like right here, you know? and then
Yeah.
I'll have one like right here, and then
Oh,
right
okay.
here, and then I'll like, and I've forgotten that I put it right here, so I'll like discover it by accident over here, and then I'll be like, oh shit, I'll gotta go create the link to it over
Yeah.
here, and it's fine because like
Oh, okay.
when I was writing this section, I'm like, oh wait, I forgot about that. Well, I'll just incorporate it in this section, and then our brain uses, and there's a reason that I stuck it in each of those three locations near the most similar place. So, but our brain can then get crafty and creative when we're actually writing the manuscript. So it's like way beneficial. So it's this is what Lumen said. It's a system of order and disorder. Yeah. So I'm
I feel
sure
better now.
I'm sure. Yeah. Okay. So I'm sure there's an aspect. There's probably two coins. There's probably two sides of the coin. There's probably something's going on, a sequence in your mind where you do feel like you may have screwed up the numbering, and there may be truth to that. But at the same time, it's not as bad as you think, and it's
Mhm.
actually could be end up being a huge gift. Yeah, I would say that's something to keep in mind. I think maybe we can transition, and we've touched upon it throughout this, but talking about because you spoke on it too, is like you were in a creative and writing rut, and I think the anti-net really helped you get out of it.
Mhm.
And so let's talk about getting out of creative ruts and getting out of like writing ruts, and strategies. And I'd love to hear what helped you. But first off, I want to take an example from myself in this week. And for me, I just got back from traveling to Israel, and I haven't had a lot of. And then before that, I was kind of settling down from actually writing the book. And I finished, writing the first manuscript, and now I'm in the copy editing phase. I've kind of taken my foot off the gas a little bit, waiting for the copy editor to send back drafts, and I've been, integrating the stuff. So I've kind of stopped doing actual active, knowledge development in terms of actual reading about. I still have probably 30 books that would love to integrate into the book. I just had to cut myself off. So then for the past month, I've been holding myself back from actually reading the book or other books because I don't want to be forced to then go back and integrate it into my
Mhm.
manuscript, which is already bigger than yeah, it's like,
The
hey, you want to learn the
Bible.
anti-net? Yeah, here's a 600-page book. Like I'm gonna have to create like a much simpler one, of course. But what I felt, I kind of felt out of integrity because for the past month, like I've been taking like bib notes, but I haven't really done good, solid knowledge development. And meaning I haven't sat down for 2 hours and gone from a reading to a bib card to a main card. And I carved out 2 hours yesterday where I'm like, you know what? I need to stop. I feel like a hypocrite right now by I mean, like, look, I've done it for the past year and a half, right? Like, but
Yeah.
for the past month and from writing a book, I'm like, people are like, I want to get back into that feeling. So I decided, and so I was kind of in I would say a creative rut, you could say. I mean, some people would be like, oh, that's preposterous. You just wrote like a, you know, 190,000 word book. And, but I'm like, no, I want to actually get that feeling of developing knowledge and growing and learning. And
Mhm.
so what I did yesterday is I was like, you know what? I want to read. I never finished the a section of the book called "Forgetting Machines," which is about like the you know old knowledge management and what people and scholars did back in the day in like
Mhm.
the medieval times, the Renaissance, even the Greco-Roman times. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna pick up this book, and I've decided um, I'm not gonna use the material to integrate back into my book. I'm gonna just write. I'm gonna pick and choose and decide that I'm going to write about a piece about excerpting, taking quotes out from books and writing quotes down, right?
Mhm.
And so I picked up chapters, a chapter from the book on the ancient history of excerpting, and I just did knowledge development, and it's felt so good. And what I'm saying, and it's what helped me get out of the pseudo creative rut, is this sounds uh, uh, weird, but I guess it is deciding to decide. I
Yeah.
decided to decide. I
Yeah.
decided that I'm going to decide on writing about one topic, and
Yeah.
and I'm going to write about excerpts, and maybe I'll write and publish this piece in a month, but I'm just going to start writing and building out the stuff about excerpts. And what ended up happening is, yeah, a bunch of other stuff came out of that, but it felt just awesome to get back into things. And I think, and I posted this on Twitter, I think yesterday, where and after thinking about this, is that Nicholas Luhmann published 550 papers, right, in a 30-year time span. That comes out to 1.5 papers per month. That means every single month he was working on a small micro project, and that ended up developing and creating this like massive beast of a compound interest Lollapalooza effect over 30 years, right? But
Yeah.
he didn't set out to create a 30-year hit, uh, theory of society by just focusing on that big project. He said, every single month, I'm going to work on one, maybe two papers, and just research the living hell out of that area, and then publish a paper on that area. And
Yeah.
so what I decided to do, and I think what a lot of people ought to decide to do, is just focus on one thing, focus on one topic, and say, hey, this is my project for this month. For
Yeah.
me, it's excerpts and excerpting. And the idea of excerpting is reading a book and writing out word for word, the quote from the book, which Sankei Arens says is a no-no, yet we have evidence that Luhmann did it, and there's
Yeah.
huge benefits of doing that. You hammer
Yeah.
in good ideas into your mind.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Well,
yeah,
that's
and here's
how we develop, right? We chunk already for memory. So it would make sense to chunk a project. That's just why I liked your 6-week sprint idea.
Yeah.
That you do. I watched a YouTube video years ago of a lady talking about sprinting. She's like, everybody talks about these quarterly goals, yearly. She's like, I can't do that. I'm too ADHD, and I'm, she's like, the most I can sustain is 6 weeks. And I guess she partnered with a like-minded woman, and they started a successful business, and they literally work for 6 weeks, and then they take like 4 weeks off and incubate, reflect. They're in the creative business and design as designers and stuff, and so they a multi-million-dollar company that they only do sprints of work in 6 weeks, and then they literally take, I think it's 4 weeks off or something, where for family and what Benjamin Hardy would call as epiphany vacations. Even if you should have those weekly, daily if you can. And so I think I was listening to you, and I was thinking, in my mind, I was like, man, he's so hard on himself. I'm the same way, dude. You just finished a fucking $180,000 word book, right, on a important subject, a deep work. Again, this is not 3 months, 6 months, a year of rehashing bullshit that everybody else is marketing and teaching out there. This is really deep work, and I haven't showcased mine on my blog yet. Mine's mostly satirical and personal essay, because I need to get that out of me first. As I work on the deep work here, but you've done it. So I mean, are you serious when you say did you feel like hypocritical? I mean, I've been in those moments. Did you feel a little like, oh man, if I don't do this,
it's a little bit in jest, but I could have, what it was mainly was, I could have seen myself continuing to go down that path, once you fall into a habit. And then you fall out of love with what really
cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Exactly. You fall out of love with what really sparked and the magic, which is the actual knowledge development. And so the other, I would say 80% of me was like, I really miss that just deep work knowledge
Mhm.
development, 2 hour, use the cube block timer and just develop the mind. And I created like I think 3, maybe 4 main cards yesterday. Like, here's one of them. So I can hold that up. People love this you know, note card porn type stuff. But yeah, this was a very interesting card about like a lot of people think the history of excerpting goes back to the Renaissance. Even scholars talk a lot about it, and they're like, okay, well, it was big in the Renaissance, but like we have evidence that excerpting traces back, way further than the Renaissance. We have evidence that excerpt collections are being used were being used by Cicero, who lived from 106 to 143 BC. And we have Plutarch and just a lot of this you know like old ancient writers, right? I've never even heard, I mean, I've looked them up, right? They're Greco-Roman, like
Mhm.
Pliny the Younger.
Mhm.
Like, your name was
Yeah.
Pliny the Younger. Oh, it's
Yeah.
Pliny the Younger again with
Yeah.
his books. He lived from 51 to 103 AD, and he wrote a great book. The Tranquility, I think he wrote Tranquility of Mind. I'm not really
Yeah.
reading this. I'm kind of riffing on this, but yeah. And then I've got the pages and everything all cited. That's gonna pack, like, a lot of people don't realize, like, this can pack this is not just a paragraph. It can pack like a
Yeah.
whole page of content if you write it properly and communicate it properly.
Yeah. I mean, I could
And
riff off of that all day,
yeah.
like how the
Yeah.
philosophers, it makes sense, right? Because they're wanting to pull the most important maxim out of a larger, discourse. Philosophers, they can be very overly, talk about writing thousands of pages to say one maxim, right? That's philosophy, right? So I
Yeah.
could see where excerpting would go back, because they're like, just pull out the most important maxims from this dense work, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's an interesting observation. So I'm glad you just got back on it. My question to you is, great, but where is incubation happening? Where are you allowing your mind to, like, at least rest, to make those interconnective, frame hangs in the unconscious mind? Did you read my article on, like, unconscious art versus conscious art? You're
I
like,
read
fuck no.
no, I was gonna say I really loved, and let's plug your site is lanewatson.com. I love your
Opposed
writing.
to
Your
not lanewatson.com.
Yeah. I haven't read your June 6th one, and I just started it, and I'm like, wow, this is great.
Thank
I
you.
I
Well,
believe.
you're behind it. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Seriously, you
Oh
got me
yeah.
there. So
Oh no. I love it. Let me see. The unconscious mind creates, but was it? Oh, shut up, Siri. Siri just came on and was trying to talk to me.
this is why we need to go back to the real life.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. This is
You
just
should we listen, people. We need to make Scott really wealthy so he can buy land in Mexico, and we can start a community, a cult community down there. Get away before it all crumbles into Web3, fat 300
yeah.
300-pound men in the metaverse. Taking over
No.
your mind.
Mexico is far too nice. We need to go into, like, deep, like, we need to go into, I wouldn't say Ukraine, but we need to go into the wilderness of Russia,
Yeah.
cold winters, and developing knowledge the
Yeah.
analog way, the hard way, like true analog
Scott
revolutionaries as
presents
we
the
are.
archipelago. Take
That's
them
where
to
our
the
first
gulag.
conference. That's where our first conference is going to be held. That's the winter conference. The summer conference is going to be held in Amish country in Pennsylvania.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Deep work, people.
yeah. Well, yeah. So that's anyway. That is my sermon on getting out of creative ruts. That's what helped me, is to decide on a topic, even if it's just a month-long topic, and be like, you know what, I'm just going to develop out this piece of knowledge. Of course, there's like 50 other things on my to-do list of types of things I'm interested in.
Yeah.
But I also was like, one of which is like, writing about the hero's journey and or Joseph Campbell. Yeah,
Mhm.
Joseph Campbell. And but right now it's like that's kind of it's a little bit far off branch for my audience. And it's going to come in handy, I think, when people actually have their creative work and output and want to actually tell
Mhm.
their story and
Yeah.
market it. But yeah, so anyways, I chose a simple one, which is excerpting. So
I think that's well, that's interesting because I was struggling this week with a couple of days writing down. My mind was chaos. I wanted to write this, I wanted to write that. And so I was like, just write, just sit down and write from your current main note cards, start
yeah,
developing this, chaos creative framework theory. Well, as soon as I sat down, I wasn't in the mood to write it because I don't feel ready to write it. But the moment that I sat down and said, just do it and start, writing, it didn't go that line. It went into a, what I would call a creative nonfiction personal essay, which I think is important to my eventual audience. I don't really
mhm.
have an audience yet.
Hey, you have an
Um,
audience of one. I love
yeah.
your diagrams, by the way. Your
Oh, thanks.
diagrams are
Oh, from
complete
the note
money.
card.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'd
they're
written
great.
somebody on someone was doing generative art, and I was like, man, I want to learn to do that to put it in. He's like, dude, keep doing what you're doing. I like it better. So that was made me feel good. Um, but I just sat down and it had, I wrote. So this it is. I'm telling you, Scott, it's the anti-net is the my point, you cannot we don't even need to have the discussion. I mean, I've studied creative blocks, writing blocks, all of that. I've never believed in them. There's no such thing. It's called sitting down and doing it. The problem that people have is they don't have anything to write about.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if they
exactly.
do, they doubt it. But
Hmm.
you can't do either one of those if you have the anti-net. I feel
Hmm.
like that was a commercial.
No, you do bring up a good point about the self-doubt, because if someone's just trying to like, you know, I think there's I forgot what they say there's two types of writers, there's like I think planners and
Seat of the
pantsers.
pants.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
And if you try to just write off the seat of your pants, I think, yeah, that's when, self-doubt does creep in. However, like using the workflow of the anti-net, when you're having a conversation with an actual book and the author, and then you're writing, your interpretation from that experience of the author, it gives you
Hmm.
less self-doubt because you're like, no, this isn't a crazy idea. Like this,
Yeah.
this author is writing about it, but here's where I disagree with him on, and here's why. And like you just go and it just kind of
Or I'm
creates
gonna
that
ladder
momentum.
off of that,
Yep,
Yeah, I
exactly.
mean, I've never liked that idea, the pantser slash planner, because I don't fit neatly in either one. I can definitely see the pants it, and that's what I'm doing with these personal essays. But the planning, the planning has happened in the anti-net in a
Hmm.
way, but more importantly, something I subscribe to, that all great art, all great fine art and great ideas come from unconscious cognition, not conscious cognition. When we
Hmm.
make conscious choice, we are we only have a limited amount to be able to put
Hmm.
pieces together, right? And for
Hmm.
memory space, but unconsciously, that's what the anti-net's happening. That's it's taking the absolute metaphoric chaos in your unconscious and slowly pulling out the jewels, the gems, and going in there. And that is you fighting with
Yeah.
what you're reading and fighting with yourself.
Hmm.
You should be having that platonic dialogue, that the platonic what do they call it, my brain my brain's so fried
Internal
today.
dialogue.
Yeah, the internal dialogue, the platonic engagement with the book. You need to be
Hmm.
having that, and then you need to be having that with yourself, because you should be, to understand, to stand under the weight of an ideal, you need to you know wrestle with
Yeah.
it. And the only way to do that is I think a lot of people do it in their mind. You cannot do it. You have to get it down on index cards, main notes, reflection notes, whatever. And that's been the salvation for me, is that I've had all this to write about. I think a good amount of anger helps too. Anger
Oh, yeah.
towards things, you
For
should
sure.
be angry about something.
But the anger, like in my earlier work, I've tried to tone it down, but I've, like in my earlier cards, I'm like, just Sanke Arens is just the devil. He's full of shit. He's misleading everyone. I'm like, now when I went back to write the book, I'm like trying to taper it down, but like, and they were founded.
You almost sound
right?
like an Arns apologist now, man.
Yeah. I know, right? They were founded on good, principles. I'm like, I'm like, Nicholas Luhmann never used or even used the terms or even necessarily the concepts of fleeting notes, literature notes, permanent notes.
Yeah.
I'm like, but in the very beginning, I was just like, this is awful. He's screwing up people's lives. He's confusing people, right? And basically, anger helps when you're moving towards a cause and teaching people. So, I mean,
I just, I can't emphasize enough that there is no block. It is, you have what you need to say inside of you. It's either one, you don't trust it, i.e. go to your anti-net and develop and wrestle there. So because you already have it, you're just not ready to write it. So you need to wrestle with it somewhere on your cards before you put out some half-baked shit, like everybody else does. Or two, you literally don't have the knowledge to write it yet, i.e. go back to the anti-net and wrestle with it and find more reading material. And that's what I'm doing with my framework that was asked about by one of the people, productivity or whoever in the group. What's that thing behind Lane? It says, that's my framework that I'm working on for creativity and chaos. The whole thing is nowhere near for me to put it out there. Do I want to put it out there in an eventual community to help me develop, to give me insight, to say, hey, check out this book, Lane, or check out that? Yeah, I mean, when you leave college, or if you've never been in college, that's the missing link. College otherwise sucks, in my opinion. You don't learn anything in college. You're indoctrinated now, especially. What's beautiful, at least if you seriously are an academic minded person in college, is the friendships you make and the connections you make, and you discuss things and ideas. I'm at least back in my day, that's what we did. We went to the bar and we drank and we smoked cigarettes and we talked about, philosophy and poetry and literature, and what we had learned in class that day. And then we drink more and end up having sex with each other and regretting it the next day. That's beauty of learning.
And you went to all male college.
Yeah,
right?
I forgot to mention it was a Catholic all male college. The next morning, washing the sin. I'm not that old.
Yeah.
Although I did have professors like, back in our time, if you didn't know this Latin, we would smack you around.
Jeez.
They were serious too.
Yeah. I think we honestly need a little bit more of that, man. Like the Latin, and like, people need to be, that's a great way to learn,
just be locked down.
Yeah. I mean, I like being the good cop. So maybe for my my retreats and my boot camps, I'll just hire a Catholic priest to teach people neuro imprint Latin and, smack them with a ruler, including me. Like that would be good for me to learn Latin too. Like I wouldn't learn Latin. That would probably help me. So, well, yeah. I mean, closing off this topic on, I guess on, getting out of creative ruts is
there is none.
So yeah,
we wasted 30 minutes of your time. There is nothing. You just do it.
Honestly, is the sitting down to just do it just deciding to decide, I think is the
It is.
and look, I like excerpts is probably the 68th best, like it's number 68 on the best things I could write about right now
Yeah.
or do, but it's just there and it created momentum, and that's what I'm going to be doing,
Yeah.
and it's created a lot of other ideas along the way. But I think as the mantra I'm used to and what I like to describe by is movement over meditation. Don't just
Mm,
meditate, move,
yeah.
just pick one thing, decide on one topic and write about it and invest in it. Make it for me, it's like a month long um you know
What do you say to the
project.
people that, because I mean, because I've had it too. Well, I do have it. What would you say to the people who say, when you say, well, just pick a topic and just do, I agree. What do you say to those people that it's like, well, the topic doesn't really fit into the overall, what I'm trying to accomplish? What would you say to those people? I'm
I
interested from
I
your step.
Yeah, that's where I think it should relate to the overall picture. Like let's say
Mm,
you have a high, like uh you want to go in the general direction of the people that you want to serve, and your topic, right? And that's why I chose excerpting, because it's still within my realm of like knowledge development and
mhm,
writing and reading and learning, right? And that's what I was kind of hinting at or getting at with. I also felt compelled to read The Hero with a Thousand Faces because I'm
mhm.
just really interested in that right now. I
I love
also,
Joseph Campbell.
yeah, I also, was reading a book and I just stopped reading it. I put it down, my bib card's still in it, but I put it back on the shelf. Started reading the book called Denial of Death,
Mm,
The Denial of Death. And it's relates to how, he essentially, his thesis is that every single thing we do and every action, every, quest we kind of get on, every journey we get on, every project we take on is in the background. The biggest thing driving us is us denying the existence of death, and that's our greatest fear. And we're
hmm.
just really trying to distract ourselves from the fact that we are, mortal and gonna die. And we kind
Is
of
it
like
another opaque book you're going to fucking have me read that you're going to suggest? All
it is, yeah, yeah. I mean,
right, keep it to
honestly,
yourself. I don't want to
that's
fucking read it, although
yeah,
it sounds
that's what I did
interesting.
with the bicameral mind. Like
Yeah.
I found myself so interested in that, but
Hmm.
it's not very applicable to what
Yeah.
I'm actually working on and doing. And I set that book down multiple times. I finished it, but I did a very, selective reading. I went through
Yeah.
each page very, very selective and try to, and pull some knowledge out of it.
Hmm.
But yeah, and so what I've found myself doing lately is at nights, because it's hard to shut off. And if I'm like reading a book at night, I'm gonna have a bib card in it and do it. So what I've been doing at nights is to wind my brain down,
Looking
is
at
to
reading Sports Illustrated.
yes, exactly. Exactly. No, I've been reading actually, it's not that far off from that, but it's fiction, and it's those kind of crime type
Oh
thriller
yeah.
books. And there's a few really good ones. There's like I'm reading this book. Well, I don't know if you've heard of like the Travis McGee series. Let me look him
Mm.
up. McGee. Yeah, look up the Travis McGee series for anyone, and I think that's what it is. It's just a bunch of books. They're crime fiction type of books, and
Is that like noir or like contemporary, or
uh
like is it the old like 50 Cent detective type crime noir, or is it the
yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to classify it. There's another I guess let's see what it's. Crime fiction, they're about like 150 pages,
Mhm.
and they're just well written, just very clear, and
Mhm.
they kind of get you into the mind of it's just a really interesting. Uh, there's also, have you heard of the book Hitman? Um, who's it written by? But the author is fantastic. Um, yeah, I'm not sure where the uh, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, reading fiction. That's reading fiction. That, to answer your question, reading fiction at night. And
Yeah.
then during the day, your main craft is when you're going to create something, creative work, is do it within the overall vision into your field, directly applied to your field.
Yeah.
And then, like, I could see myself drift going into and kind of creating like a campaign around storytelling and around marketing your creative work. And when I do that, that is when I think Joseph Campbell's book will definitely come in handy,
Yeah.
and I can dive into that. So yeah,
Yeah.
that is my advice. Yeah.
Very good advice.
Well, yeah, I think we should probably wrap things up before going on
Yeah.
too long. But yeah, anything else we should talk about, or?
No, well, I kind of wanted to talk to you about do you have time to talk about Jesus today? Can I tell you about my personal relationship with Jesus? Oh,
Um,
seriously.
you know, okay. So we'll cap off our convo with this. But I just got back from Israel, and
Yeah.
I spent a day in Nazareth. So I saw the Sea of
Oh, wow.
Galilee. I saw where Jesus grew up. It's kind of been turned into a, kind of a, parts of it have turned into a crapshoot.
Yeah.
This town. But it was really interesting seeing Sea of Galilee, and then the Jordan River, where John the Baptist baptized Jesus, and all of the old towns. I'm like, man, like, this is essentially, I'm walking.
Did you just
It's
do it
weird.
on your own, or did you like have a tour guide?
Yeah, we went on this tour bus, is left at like 5 a.m. in the morning, and 3 hours there, 3 hours back. It was it's a pretty god awful experience. And then we got back, and then that night at 2 a.m. we had to get to the Israeli airport and stand around for 6 hours and barely make our flight.
Yeah,
So
read what you're talking about.
yeah,
Does
yeah,
sound like a nightmare.
yeah, not fun, but you know lived it up anyway. Yeah, it's interesting. We've our entire culture is dominated by Christianity and Jesus, and it's interesting going to the land where he grew up. I think that the stuff that Jesus did stand for, which was like one of the biggest tales is of him, and stories is of him going into the marketplace in Jerusalem, and he
Kicking
saw
some
like they
ass.
were just kicking some ass. They were just turning God into a monetization vehicle. What's
Yeah.
crazy is it is exactly the same today in Old Town
Yeah.
Jerusalem, and even in Nazareth. Like, we got dropped off at like every single gift shop, and buy Jesus statues and all this. And then, like, if Jesus was back around today, he would
Yeah.
be so pissed. He's like, did you guys not read a word of what I was preaching or said? I said, like, your relationship should be with God and God alone, and not idols, and turn it into a marketplace. And like, literally, like, Ariana, like, she bought me a mug as a joke, and it's an I love Jesus mug. And it's like the whole thing is commercialized now. It's
Yeah.
kind of it's interesting, like human nature, how even a figure that said, he turned the tables over when they were creating a marketplace out of God.
Yeah.
Now that figure, because they worship him and they liked what he stands for, is now
Yeah.
in the paradoxical exact loop
Yeah.
of, now he's made into a basically like a
An
souvenir
idol.
shops are just the I love Jesus souvenir shops are just everywhere there.
That's
But
crazy.
yeah,
How did
yeah,
they realize it was that gimmicky? I thought they
yeah,
at least had some modicum of decency towards, the whole Nazarene storyline. I didn't realize it was so pimped out like that. That's
yeah,
actually disgusting to me.
yeah. Like
Wow.
up at the Jordan River, it's just
I mean,
basically
I make
it's
jokes about all this stuff and everything, but I mean, the reality is, in all honesty, I struggle with my own, you know, identity within, the context of spirituality and things. I grew up Baptist, I became Buddhist, I've been agnostic. It's I'm going on my 50th year next year, and it's something I still struggle with. So
yeah.
I make fun of it, but that irritates me, and it irritates me the same way that, like, Christians, they monetize it in other ways. I mean, we don't
Yeah.
need to get on this whole bent.
Yeah, yeah. They run a yeah, the Jordan River, like where they drop
Oh,
us
don't
off,
tell me.
is like it's a whole shopping center, and like it's literally it's like baptism as a service. Like you
Are you
pay for a
serious?
robe and then you can get baptized, and it's
Wow.
X number of dollars. But
In the Jordan River, like
yeah,
Jesus.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, I think I've had a similar kind of journey with you on the faith front. Is, I grew up Christian, then Catholic, and then fell out of it, and then for a long while I was, like, I would say agnostic, probably more on atheist. I would say more agnostic, but I found a lot of pleasure in watching just Richard Dawkins absolutely unpants people on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
But then, I went through a recent transition back into, oh, I think, I like life better, and I find it more hopeful and optimistic and enjoyable if I open my mind to a metaphysical
Hmm.
entity, something else above there. I found an interesting word
So
or term.
you're becoming tradcath.
I don't know what that means.
That's what Justin Murphy and all them are. They're traditional Catholics.
Oh,
They're called
really?
tradcaths.
Tradcaths? Yeah, I found an interesting word researching this. It's called dialectical monism, and the
Hmm.
concept is through two polar, opposites, through two there becomes one. And there's always going to
Hmm.
be, yeah. Let me read we'll read the definition of dialectical monism. No one talks about it.
I like that.
And so for me, I like
I
to
remember
adopt.
I remember hearing about it vaguely at my Jesuit university when I was studying theology. So,
Yeah. So, dialectical monism is an ontological position that holds that reality is ultimately a unified whole, distinguishing itself from monism by asserting that the whole necessarily expresses itself in dualistic terms. So, for the dialectical monist, the essential unity is the complementary polarities, which, while opposed in the realm of experience and perception, are co-substantial in a transcendent sense, meaning the two poles, actually create unity and unification in truth. So for
hmm.
me, it's like I like to
Is there a
listen
church that
to
subscribes to this theology?
all I yeah, the Church of Scott
Probably
Scheper.
Jesuits.
So
I would doubt it if, like, some Jesuits subscribe to that, because they're
yeah.
all into apophatic, cataphatic
Okay.
expressions of God, negative, positives.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to think of it like as the two poles are, Eastern and Western religions, right? Which that's an argument is that really two poles, but it's like, like, for instance, you have options: choose your Western religion and then choose your Eastern religion and then
Yeah,
follow both of them. So,
yeah.
it's for instance,
And that's kind of what I've done for
follow
the past 10
yeah,
years. Or in
follow
reality, it's kind of a Christian,
yeah,
Buddhist, Eastern
yeah,
Orthodoxy, because I miss the ritual, the tradition of my child. I mean, I don't miss Baptist, Southern Baptist, but I did study Catholicism. I was
yeah.
going to become a Catholic, but a priest, actually. But I do miss that ritual. It is my tradition as a Westerner,
Hmm.
but I subscribe to kind of a mystical Buddhist view of cause and effect universe as God expressed. So yeah, I mean, um
Yeah. It's
join my
that's
community. It's only $100, and I'll teach you I reveal the truth of Christ and give you a Christ bobblehead.
exactly. Yeah.
People are
Uh,
probably like, boy, this devolved.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, Cool. I think it's best to end there.
Yeah.
So, you know, we'll
As the
let
sun sets
people
over your shoulder and gives you a halo over you.
exactly. Let's get over here.
There you
Yeah.
go.
The anti-net revolutionary.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you do
Um,
look a little Che Guevara in there. You should put out shirts anti-net with Che Guevara on it.
I think I think I'm gonna do that with, like, you know, like pen and note cards, you know, like like, you know, instead of, you know, how they have the shirts with the power
Yeah,
to
it's
the
like
people.
this.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's gonna have you're gonna have a pen and a note card, a
It should be
pen and
like,
a pen and bib card in hand.
yeah, there
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Well, yeah, hopefully we
All right.
gave people some value. We gave them some juice of get their creative juices going, you know, decide to decide, and movement over meditation. And yeah.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, thanks, Lane. And
Yeah.
we'll see everybody a little bit later. All right. Wait, stop.